approaching the end of our plan, but before we get there, I want to ask a couple more questions. I want to bring it back, if I can, to NFV and 5G, which is where we started. Do you think the adoption of NFV in CSP networks is happening at the rate required to support 5G deployments? 5G seems to have those operators want to go fast and first. There are those that have very precise time scales to stick to. Is NFV happening fast enough and correctly enough, or is there anything more we as an industry do to support this? Diego. Go on. Jan.
Sure.
You're both advocates here.
I think we have a very narrow window here with the virtualization before the 5G advent. And we must really use it or even speed it to industrialize this virtualization stage. Because yes, the next step is continuous, and yes, it will be a new set of promises or benefits. But here, we must stick on this step we are in, industrialize it, and before the 5G event, because it's already a huge step in terms of reskilling, in terms of changing the business models, in terms of, let's say, learning curve as a whole. And before engaging the next one, I think it's wise really to use this window and not to miss this window, because it's quite narrow, by the way.
Narrow window of opportunity.
Yeah. So, as said before, we are embarked NFV for quite some time. I think we have something like 3 years of experience of operating NFV-based services. So we had sort of a bit of a head start and the learning phase. For us, it's a no-brainer that this comes like that. And I'm relatively positive for a first 5G deployment that we are ready also on the NFV side. So everything fine.
I would say that yes. If you look at the original prospects that we had when we started this all, it's something about fast transformation, something's going to happen in a couple of years, we are going to shorten all cycles, etc. Well, then reality kicks in, and then you hear about the amortization of the equipment, and you tell people that you have to go for an investment to change something that was bought 1 year ago and that is working, which doesn't make any sense. So at the end, we are at a reasonable pace. We are, in general, probably some of us are ahead, some others are behind, for sure. But this is something that is going as it would be reasonable, taking into account all the conditions we have. But I agree with Joan is that there is a window that we cannot miss. If we miss that window, things will happen in a different way, and that different way probably will not be pleasant at all.
Renee?
I think I was having this discussion again with one of my cloud colleagues, as in, hey, how long did the cloud industry take, to be virtualized and containerized and et cetera? And she felt like we were taking some of these technologies and trying to literally fast forward it in the networking industry. So I think as an industry also, we need to be kind to ourselves and patient. It's not something we can just transform in a matter of 2 years or 3 years. It does take time. It took time even in the cloud industry. I know they've evolved further ahead than we are right now, but it did take a long time even in the cloud industry. So it's going to take time even in the networking industry. And I think we as an industry need to be more patient with ourselves.
Okay. Domenico?
I have a slightly different view. For me, the NFV, the virtualization is not the finish line. This industry has two priorities: to automate more and to monetize more. Okay? The good of the virtualization is that may help both of them. Because thanks to virtualization, it's more easy to automate. And thanks to virtualization, we can have more flexibility and composability and we can probably speed up the service creation and help the monetization. Now, the time window that my colleagues were describing before is exactly the time we have to prove that certain things can work in very 4G or 4.5G scenarios before 5G is coming. But whatever we are proving needs to be focused on the fact that we need to automate more or we need to facilitate the monetization. It's not just to prove the technology as the technology, because going back to what Diego opening the entire panel, right? It is not sustainable otherwise. We have a problem of sustainability. So the automation is key. And we need to prove if the case is Mac, for example, good. The case is Mac where we prove certain things, but at the end of the day, we need to demonstrate that we can automate more and we can make easier to monetize the investments.
Great. We have one final opportunity for a last question from our audience. Oh, gentleman in the middle, I'm coming your way. Your name and job company, please, sir.
Hi there, my name's Andrew Coward from Lumina. I'd like the panel, if they may, to put on their sales hats for the last question. And if you do so, the question is, what would you say to an enterprise customer to convince them to spend new money on your new 5G virtualized service? What would that one thing you'd say to them be?
Oh, who's going to put the sale hat on first?
In general, I mean, that depends very much of the customer, but basically, it's about you will be able to do things that you have never thought you could. And that's basically the idea, is that you can address, because it's not about that you, I mean, if you tell a customer you're going to go for a new brand service just to see videos in higher resolution in your tiny screen on your phone, but if you tell them that you can, for example, you can integrate your factory with your stores all over the country and coordinate the movements of your trucks, that to me makes sense. It's not that then it comes with the game of prices and benefits and all the like, but it's something that or you go to a hospital or to an emergency team and tell them about reaching out to people in danger in the case of an emergency, because you can easily deploy an elastic edge on top of the area. So I think there are cases that are easy. Then when it comes to the price, is whether they are willing to pay for that. So that's another story.
Yes, this is the point. Because if I may comment, because as HP we have often contacts with the CIO, with IT manager. I think the problem is the opposite. CIO and IT manager, they know very well what they are looking from the CSP today. They have a very clear idea. They want much more flexible connectivity, and they want many more over-the-top services on top of the connectivity. And they can list today. If you go to many of them, they have already a clear picture of what they want. The problem of the industry is that how much do they want to pay? How much do they want to pay, and how much the industry on the other side is ready to stay into a certain price structure, okay? So I think the end customer, especially on the B2B, they have a very clear idea and very clear requests and cases already.
So the one requirement that I've heard come up repeatedly from the enterprise perspective, besides low latency, real-time control, and machine-to-machine communication, is actually data sovereignty and security. So a lot of the big enterprises want a lot of their data on premise. They're extremely concerned with the security and privacy of that data, and are very much interested in kind of the 5G edge scenarios where their data can be protected and remain on-premise for the enterprises. So from what are they willing to pay for? They are willing to pay for that data sovereignty and security.
So probably, I mean, the example I was talking about in this Industry 4.0 type of use case we were doing, I mean, the business case is completely stupid. It's sort of throw away copper cables and put in wireless. Has nothing to do with 5G, but you need a certain reliability, certain guarantees, and sort of managed by somebody able to manage networks. That's it.
Last chance for a comment before we wrap the panel up. Any more takers? Are we good? Thank you, Andrew, for the question. Well, that is all the time we have for this evening, unfortunately, because we could go on forever. It's a fascinating discussion and great debate. May I thank all our panelists this evening, Marcus, Renu, Diego, Jan, and Domenico. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
A big thank you also to our sponsors, of course, HPE and Intel, and to all of you, our audience, who really made this very interactive and very engaging and very enjoyable. So thank you very much, everyone. Good evening.